Welcome to the Cozy World podcast. Today we're talking about exciting subject is the impact of textile on humans' health and solutions and new innovations in the market. We'll talk about different subjects, the microbiome and textile, synthetics, its effect on humans' health. My name is Irina Kuznetsova. I'm the founder of The Cozy. The Cozy is activewear brand based on natural, innovative materials. Today we're excited to present Rosie Broadhead, researcher, specialist in biomaterials at Ghent University, Belgium. Hi Rosie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It would be wonderful to hear about your background and any latest work that you've been focusing lately.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So, I'm a researcher at Ghent University and I focus on the textiles microbiome. And I also have a company skin series where I focus on new innovation in textiles, focusing on this interaction between the skin and textiles and how we can provide benefits to the skin through what we're wearing. And my background is in sportswear and fashion, so I understand a bit about how the industry works and the problems in the industry concerning synthetic materials and also finishes on fabrics as well in the industry. So I wanted to use this understanding with my background to try and find solutions in this area.
In recent years, we're increasingly focusing on mental health, about the environment for obvious reason, living during the time of climate changes. But what about skin health? Skin is our largest organ and home of millions of bacteria, fungi and viruses. Surely the textile that we put on and get closer to affect the skin health and therefore our wellness in general. How can you expand on that?
Yeah, so the skin microbiome is, you're right, it's comprised of billions of microorganisms on the skin. Often we talk about the gut microbiome, but the skin microbiome is a bit overlooked in the textile industry. But it's a ecology of fungi, viruses, bacteria, and this kind of interaction between these bacteria are very fundamental for the health of our body. So we really want to create a healthy ecology of bacteria on our skin. And what is kind of interesting is that when we're wearing our clothes, the bacteria that is on our skin also transfers to our textiles, and vice versa. The kind of bacteria on our textiles transfers to our skin. So in this way, we kind of build a relationship between our clothing as well. And it's interesting because this gives us an idea about how we can kind of implement new ideas or how we can kind of alter the skin microbiome through what we're wearing. And what also I find interesting about the skin microbiome and our bodies is that only half the cells in our body contain the human genome, and much of our body is comprised of these bacteria that are so fundamental to our health. So it becomes very important as a designer or a textile researcher how we can kind of build on this research and look at how we can kind of work towards building textiles that nourishes the skin microbiome.
I would like to discuss about synthetics and its effect on humans' health and the environment. We came across a lot of studies about effect of synthetics on short-term and long-term on humans' health, and possible links between sportswear and health issues, some like cancer, obesity, developmental disabilities, and showing that sportswear particularly have something for us to be concerned about. We are very well skilled to check our food when we eat, what does it consist of, to make sure that there are no nasty ingredients in food of our families, especially children. Isn't it something that we need to be concerned about for materials and the clothing that we wear? At the CUSI, we pay particular attention to limit synthetic exposure. We achieved to create our stretchy garments with 5% of synthetic. The rest consists of certified recycled natural materials. What do you think, given your expertise, what do you think about this relation with synthetics and humans' health, and how do you think consumers should be aware about what is the composition of textile they wear, and how it should be communicated?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely true that as a society we've become very aware about what we're eating and also what we're putting on our skin, and the skincare industry is very much aware of this and developing new innovations in terms of bioactive ingredients and clean ingredients. But I think definitely the textile industry is an area that is overlooked. And actually there is potentially toxic chemicals on almost every stage of the supply chain of textile manufacture. This could be pesticides when growing cotton. It could be the dyes used to dye the fabric. And something that I focus on a lot as a designer and textile researcher is the kind of fabric finishes that are added to textiles at the final stage of fabric manufacture. These chemicals could be waterproof finishing, wrinkle-resistant finishings, and antimicrobial finishings. And these can often be very harmful to the skin and the body. So especially when we're doing exercise, when we're sweating and there's a lot of friction build-up, this can cause the fabric to rub against the skin and be absorbed into the body. So with finishes such as antimicrobials, often they contain silver or heavy metal materials, and this is not only toxic to the environment, they can get washed into water systems, and then not good for the environment, but also they're not good for our skin, and they end up killing all of the bacteria on our skin microbiome. So like I said earlier, the skin microbiome is really fundamental to the health of our body. And so we want to kind of encourage this bacteria to grow, not kill it all with our clothing. So there must be some more transparency, not only on the composition of the textiles that we're wearing, but also the finishes used, the dyes that we're using. And I think this is definitely the next step for sustainable fashion.
Talking about the environmental impact of synthetic, of course it's a little bit a funny subject, but there are some studies about these plastic-eating bacteria that some of the scientists at Ghent University and some of the northern countries scientists also looking into that subject. There are at least 2 or 3 different bacteria that is possible in certain environment with certain temperature and apparently UV, the right amount of UV light, they may be able to help us to fight the microplastic pollution and to fight plastic exposure to the environment.
Yeah, I've read about some of these studies, and I think definitely there is a bio-revolution, and in the textile industry it's very interesting because we're developing bio-fabricated materials, which are materials that are developed from bacteria cellulose, or looking at microorganisms that can grow the bacteria, or even adding microorganisms to the textiles themselves. And then of course there's interesting research on bacteria that can degrade plastic. I think often a lot of this research is quite far away from what is current reality, but I believe that this is kind of a new generation of textiles in the future and where the industry is heading.
Rosie, what about alternatives to synthetics? At the CUSI, of course, we're using a lot of natural recycling materials. We use only mechanical treatments, not chemical treatments on clothing. What are, from your perspective, what are the best materials that we should be using on day-to-day and in particular in performance wear?
Mm-hmm. Well, when it comes to kind of skin sensitivities, I would say that natural breathable materials are often better. So this could be like an organic cotton or a viscose. These materials are often skin friendly, and they often harbor the more friendly bacteria on the textiles. We often find with synthetic fabrics like polyester or nylon, they often have a prevalence of having more pathogenic bacteria build up. So this means that often they smell worse, even after washing. And so, yeah, it's often better for the skin to have something more natural and breathable next to the skin. This could also be something like bamboo and even algae textiles, often better for the skin. But when it comes to fabric finishes, then you can also add something that is not just like neutral, but also beneficial. So you could add something like a vitamin E or an algae treatment that has an antioxidant or anti-inflammatory effect on the skin. So this kind of moves into a way of thinking that is looking at kind of clothing as skincare and kind of reimagining what clothing can be and how actually the clothing that we wear next to our skin or the bed sheets or the textiles that we interact with on a daily basis really do have an effect on our bodies and how we can really create benefits with these new innovative materials.
Is it true to say that underwear and sportswear would be some categories to be more concerned about?
Yeah, exactly. So with our research on the skin microbiome, the textile microbiome, it's been proven that the textile has an effect on our skin when we're wearing them. And this is most likely the case when it's something close to our skin like underwear and activewear garments. So I would say although activewear or sportswear is mostly built or designed with synthetic fabrics like nylon and polyester, this is probably a more urgent category to try and innovate in this area, to try and develop something that is more skin friendly and more focused on promoting the skin microbiome on the body.
In shaping the future of well-being focused textile, we talk about natural materials, and what about even taking a step forward and think about therapeutical effects of textile? For example, in the Cozy collection, we use essential oils that have proven a beneficial effect to our health. I know that you specialize in therapeutical textile, and in particular, the one subject that I'm really curious about, probiotic treatment. Can you expand a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so some of the research I'm doing at Ghent University with my collaborator, Dr. Chris Calwert, he's a microbiologist and he focuses on the skin microbiome. And so together with my background in textiles and his experience with the skin microbiome, we're developing textiles that are microbiome smart. So this means incorporating native strains of bacteria. So that means bacteria that already exists on our skin into a textile so that we can start to promote healthy bacteria on the body. And this is interesting specifically for performance textiles because often they have an anti-odor effect on the skin. So we can start to find alternatives for antimicrobial finishes, which I mentioned earlier, and try and use something that is already existing on our body already to try and find solutions for these kind of performance problems. And also at Skin Series, we provide different textiles, therapeutic textiles like we knit with algae, which has an antioxidant effect on the skin. This is something that you might find interesting in your skincare, but now it's something that you can wear as like a base layer next to your body. So we're really trying to think about clothing in a different way and how we can start building collections around clothing that really has a healthier benefit to your body.
Would you say, for example, that it would be beneficial for healthcare providers to have some knowledge about healthy textile or textile for certain groups of people? For example, that could be applicable to athletes, to people who do extensive amount of sport activities, or anyone with eczema or any sensitivity of skin.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I think medical textiles is quite a different area compared with fashion. And with fashion and sportswear, you don't need the same clinical trial data that you would need for medical textiles. But having said that, I think it would be interesting for healthcare professionals who may have be working with an eczema patient or someone with psoriasis or skin conditions, that they would have awareness on the kind of textiles that might alleviate these kind of problems, like something more breathable and perhaps even bacteria encapsulated textiles that could nourish the problem, because often these kind of issues on the disease-related issues on the skin, it's often related to the skin microbiome. So the two are very much related. So it's interesting how maybe designers or textile researchers can start working with healthcare professionals to provide this new medical advice, basically.
Rosie, I read some of your articles that are, of course, very scientifical and very sometimes not easy to navigate for someone with different background, but it's very inspiring and interesting microbiome smart clothing that we touched a little bit before. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think the article you're referring to is a text that I wrote about kind of newer innovation in terms of antimicrobials, for example. But I think what's interesting is developing microbiome smart textiles, which means thinking about the ecology of bacteria on our body, and this kind of composition of bacteria is not the same all over the body. So, for example, the composition on your underarm might be different to the composition of your foot or your scalp microbiome. So I think the next step for this would be really trying to kind of develop fabric finishes that really are based on providing healthy bacteria to this kind of certain areas of the body. And I see this as kind of the next step in kind of bio-fabricated materials and microbiome smart textiles.
In our operation, the GUSI is always on search for new innovations and techniques in textile industry, and we also came across some recent innovators like Color Fix, where one of the most polluted dyeing industry, the clothing textile dyeing industry, is being totally restructured, and they base on natural technique without using chemicals. And also we like another company called Woolmark team, that they've done recent research on how marine wool is very beneficial for people with sensitive skin, and that is quite different towards normal perception that wool could be itchy and uncomfortable to your skin. So there are some very great future and bright ideas, I think, that could be soon available to all of us, hopefully to improve our clothing and textile we wear.
Yeah, I mean, what is interesting about wool is that actually, like, if you look at the history of cycle clothing, for example, all of these garments were wool-based garments, but we've somehow come into a new space where everything is made of synthetics or polyester. But it would be interesting to go back to where we came from and start kind of utilizing wool, merino wool, for these kind of garments again, because they're a lot better for your skin and they're also very performance driven as well.
Rosie, when we talk about performance wear, how can we address the needs of specialized groups, for example, athletes, sports people, professional sports people, or marathon runners that spend a lot of time during their exercise wearing primarily and mainly based on synthetic clothing?
I mean, it's quite shocking the amount of studies that look at potentially endocrine disrupting or carcinogenic materials or chemicals that are in textiles and sportswear. So it's definitely an urgent area that needs to be kind of really researched and innovated in. And of course, there's a lot of material properties in these kind of synthetic fabrics that are very desirable to an athlete. They're breathable, and they are fast drying. They're lightweight. So I think it's time to kind of innovate in this area and develop fabrics that maybe it could be based off synthetic fabrics, but something that is not shedding microplastics, but something that is more focused on skin health and are really tested for these properties as well.
At the Cousy, we also think about how to change the perception of people thinking that eco-based or sustainable clothing could be not so appealing, for example, and sometimes not desirable to wear. And we really believe by bringing some new talents, designers and collaborators, to show that natural based clothing, performance wear, can be appealing, desirable, and also durable and perfect for your sport activities. So I think in this way we can really show that it could be applicable to general public and to specialized groups as well, like athletes.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a focus of Skin Series, because not only are we developing new innovative fabrics that contain algae or probiotics, we really want to develop a collection that is desirable. So you're looking at this collection because you like how it looks or you like how it fits on your body, but then the added benefit is that it also has a positive effect on your skin, for example. So like the driver is the aesthetics or the shape of the garment, not just the properties itself. And I think that's definitely a new direction, or a direction where sustainability and eco-based textiles can go.
And I think it's also not only applicable to performance wear, because performance wear is not something that has to be strictly applicable to your sport activities. Now, in the time when we connect online to do our work, when we think constantly about our well-being, I think this type of performance wear could be worn at any time.
Everyone wants to be comfortable at the end of the day, so if you can go to the office and in the gym and back, and I mean, why not? So I think, yeah, definitely there is more a drive for base layers and next to skin clothing as worn as casual wear.
We call it as multifunctional clothing, right? Something like that. Well, great. Thank you so much again for your time. It was a wonderful conversation, and let's see how the new innovations and solutions show us new desirable world in textile industry. Thank you.